Yes, yes, yes. I'm gonna go put on my shoes. I'm gonna go put on my shoes. My boots. Actually, Lizzie, we all get candy at the same time.
My game requires paper airplanes today.
Yes, yes.
That'd be fun.
Yes. Lizzie, you didn't tell me that you're moving now.
Watch out. Gentle, gentle. Be careful.
I think it's okay. I'll check the screen.
Not today. Today is super cold. Do you know how cold it is outside today?
We walked from Aunt Lynn's to Grandma's.
Did you?
I'm going sledding today.
Yeah. You're going sledding today?
Yeah. Me too.
Crazy girl.
Crazy girl.
Just super nice and warm, okay? Okay. I was reading, and just all the praise passages were sticking out today. Maybe because Thanksgiving is coming and all the fall stuff looks so nice and cozy. In Psalm 92, it says, "It is good to give thanks to the Lord and to sing praises to your name, O Most High, to declare your loving kindness in the morning and your faithfulness every night." We serve a great God. He's worthy of our praise. He is. Do we like it when people tell you thank you and that you did a great job?
Yeah.
God likes it too. He likes that too. So this morning when we sing, we're going to tell God thank you for what He's done for us, and we're going to praise Him. So let's go ahead and pray, and then we'll get started, okay? We have some new songs for you guys. Yeah, okay, let's pray. Dear Jesus, thank you so much for this day. Thank you that I get to have fun at Kids Church today with so many kids, and thank you that we all get to be here in your house, nice and warm on this cold day and safe. Lord, we ask that you protect all of our church members that haven't made it out of their houses yet. You keep them warm, and that you bring them in soon, Lord. We love you, God, and we're so thankful for you. In your name, amen.
Amen.
All right, let's go ahead and stand and sing together. Mountains
That, it's not about us. We're not here to fight the battles. You fight it for us. We're here to turn it over to you and just give it to you, God. Whatever's going on in our life, whatever things that we're struggling with, God, you have the victory for us. And it takes us to let go of those things that hold us back, that hinder us, and to go on for the goal, the prize, which is you. So God, in any area that we're struggling, God, let it go. Let us turn our eyes upon you and recognize that you are still God. Doesn't matter what's going on in the government, doesn't matter what's going on in our finances or in our lives, God, because you have it under control. And it's our job to put our faith and our hope in you alone. So God, this morning as we turn it over to you, the author and finisher of our faith, let us look at you with new eyes that see the spiritual, with eyes that see that you have the victory. Because God, the battle belongs to you. It's not up to me to fight. It's up to me to have faith. It's up to me to have trust and hope in you. So let's give the battle over to you. Because you stand with us. And in your presence, God, there is victory. In your presence, there is fullness of joy. In your presence, there are pleasures forevermore. But let your presence overwhelm us this morning. Let it flow through this place today. In Jesus' name. Amen. See you this morning. Welcome you this morning to Gateway Christian Community. How's it going? It's good to see a whole row full of kids. It's great to see you. Look at all these kids you're bringing. They keep multiplying. I know that half of them aren't yours, literally today. So.
Yeah, we're not.
Oh, I realize this. I know your family. It's good to see you. It's good to see our youngest person in the sanctuary today. New little baby here today. Where is I saw him. Yes, I know. I saw him. And I came into the sound booth. Want to give you just mark it on your calendars. I know it's still a little ways away because we're not past Thanksgiving yet, but our Christmas Eve service, we're doing something special this year. So the service will be at 6 p.m. We'll do the candlelight service like we normally do. And then afterwards, we're going to have a party. Okay, you guys want to have a party?
Yes.
And we're going to do a white elephant gift exchange, and we'll just have a lot of fun. Maybe we can do one separate for the kids than adults. We can really have a lot of fun. But we're going to have that. So we're going to have cookies. We're going to have party foods. We're going to so we'll have service first, and then hopefully you'll come join us for Christmas Eve, and we'll do that afterwards. And it's a good excuse to be open some gifts that night too. It's Christmas Eve. Also, as you're planning Christmas as a church, we're wanting to do a Christmas gift this year. So somebody to start planning your finances. We're wanting to, I'm talking, son, this is not school. You can whisper to your mama, she can answer your question, okay? Oh, Buddy Barrel today, right? Go get the barrel. Run while I'm talking. Okay. Go. So it is a BGMC project. We've decided that the project that we're going to be giving to is for food for families in Nepal. And do you remember how much it was to feed a family for a month?
Like $20.
It's like $20 to feed a family in Nepal for a month, and we're wanting to do that. So if that's so we'll do that offering on Christmas Eve. We just want to mention it to you because I know we're not doing the boxes. We're going to do this instead to try to help the families in Nepal this year. But and then we'll have booklets out there next week. And if you're wanting to then as a family do something separate, you can do that as well and just write that down on Christmas Eve. That's coming up though. It's Christmas Eve. It's a little ways away. It's still going to be past Thanksgiving, right? You are not in charge of the service center. You can come up quietly. Okay? Sit right there. Sit. I know, we'll do it in a minute. First, we're going to take our tithing off. I'm going to invite Mr. Alvin to come on up here. And do you know what BGMC stands for?
Boys and missionaries.
Nope. Boys and with a G.
Boys and girls missionary challenge.
Boys and girls. Okay, I just say sit. Get over here. Stand. Thank you, son. Boys and Girls Missionary Challenge. So BGMC helps to meet critical needs of our missionaries all around the world. And so they help with all sorts of different stuff. I had one missionary say that it's the slush fund, although that sounds awful, but it's the one that's not earmarked to anything else, and they can ask, missionaries can ask BGMC for just about anything, and including they bought BGMC a TV tower one time. Because
Radio tower?
Huh?
Radio tower?
No, a TV tower, a television tower for broadcasting, because they were in a country and they wanted to start a Christian television station, and they didn't even have permission from, there was a monarchy from the king of the country, but BGMC provided, and they had it there, it was ready to go, and so there was a bunch of the other religions who were like, whoa, what about us? What about the Muslims or the Buddhists? So they were there, and the king asked, well, how long would it take you? It was about 6 months to get the thing in. Asked the Muslims, about 6 months to get this thing in. They asked the Christians who were there, said, they said, you see that boat in the harbor? That's our tower. We got it right there. It's provided by BGMC. It's one of my favorite stories from BGMC, so it's really cool. And so BGMC helps meet those funds. So Joe, will you pray for our missionaries and that God would meet the funds today? So praise you, dear Jesus.
Jesus, pray for the missionaries that you would use this money for great things, for the kingdom of God. In Jesus' name, amen.
Hey, get over here. Great. Joe, if they don't have it, don't just stare at them. You keep going past them.
5-year-old ushers.
He'll stare at you till you get it. See this and that? All right, and we'd like to invite you out Wednesday nights. We've been having just a great Bible study as we've been going through the Forgotten Way of Yeshua series by Ted Decker, and it's been really great. Going back through and reading Scripture and really discovering who God is, and so I've been really enjoying that. I'll let Joe finish. And so kids, are you guys ready to go to kids' church?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Sure? Yes.
Yes. Really happy. Yes.
All right. Kids, go ahead and go to kids' church.
This is really heavy.
Okay.
No problem.
All right. It doesn't matter. Put it up there. And adults, I'm going to greet a few people. This past year has been really a hard one for our community. Many people have passed away, some of them really young. Last weekend, if you haven't heard this, there was that shooting at Safeway West, where Harlan Titus was murdered. Earlier this year, young Robert here in Toke was killed by an accident. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. There are those that have passed away in our community. And I know across the state, people are hurting, mourning the loss of loved ones. It seems like more so than normal. It just seems to be a year of mourning. I know right now in Lucia, the community mourns the death of a loved one that completed suicide. And so whether the person's in the prime of their life or they're older, either way, when we mourn, we look at the sum of their life and the significance and the meaning behind their life, and often it causes us to then turn and to start looking into our own world, the meaning of our own selves, and what our own significance, our own legacy is. It is as if grief, shock, anger, possible denial, and at times the deep sense of loss has given us a pass to slow down and to consider the significance of our own experience on this side of heaven. And so while we wrestle with life's significance, we ask ourselves, what is most important in life? How do I fully live so that I am ready to die? Will I leave a legacy that benefits those I leave behind? How will I build something in this life to carry it into my eternal life? As humans, we often desire a life worth of significance. It's part of our DNA. Although significance is in the eye of the beholder, if we believe our life carries a weight of goodness and benefits to the world and those we love, we will desire to lead the world knowing it served a purpose. And so we want our lives to matter. So what makes a life significant? We know that work, play, community, our home, investments, and even our service can add values to our lives, but they do not define it. Therefore, for a life to be significant, what underlying values or practices should I participate in so that it is significant now and even the hereafter? And I know that we know that the only thing we can bring with us into heaven is other souls with us. However, it's that what am I leaving behind? That question. I know for certain there's only, and so the Bible emphasizes the importance that the practice of gratitude gives us on a life here and after of significance. And through gratitude, we appreciate life's goodness, which compels us to pay it forward. Gratitude creates within us a deep sense of happiness and satisfaction, which in turn enriches our relationships, nurtures the formation of new friendships, and underlies the very foundation of human society. And so, as we're getting ready, we're moving into this Thanksgiving season, the question is, well, what is gratitude? What exactly is it? Gratitude is the practice of actively remembering and expressing the grace, and grace is the benefits that we do not deserve, and the goodness given in our lives. Let me say that one more time. Gratitude is the practice of actively remembering and expressing the grace and goodness bestowed in our lives. So we have an innate desire to show gratitude for the goodness that we receive. Noah, early in the Bible, we are witnessing one of the first acts of gratitude. So if you have your Bibles, I want you to open up to Genesis, first book of the Bible, chapter 8, and we're going to start in verse 15. So this story takes place after the flood, and it's the first act that we see Noah doing after the flood waters have receded. And so here we have verse 15, that God spoke to Noah saying, "Go out of the ark, you and your wife and your sons' wives with you. Bring out with you every living thing of all flesh that is with you, birds and cattle, every creeping thing that creeps on the earth, so that they may abound on the earth and be fruitful and multiply." So Noah went out, and his sons and his wives and his wives' sons, and every animal, every creeping thing, every bird, and whatever creeps on the earth, according to their families, went out of the ark. Then Noah built an altar unto the Lord, and took of every clean animal and of every clean bird, and offered burnt offering on the altar. So after being on the ark, Noah has been on the ark and his family for a full year, roughly. It's been a long year. They have watched literally every single person die that was on the ark. They watched, and for a long time, all they saw was water. As this ark, this wasn't the pleasure cruise. This was a thing full of animals. Just think of the smell after that full year, and everything that is there. There was a lot of work happening. So after this full year, Noah gets off the boat. Everything's off the boat. It is empty. That story is done, but the story's not done because then, after he's off the boat, then Noah builds an altar to the Lord. And Noah's first act upon leaving the ark was an act of gratitude to give offering to God. But when listening to or reading the story told, this act of worship is easy to read over. Without close reading, it appears like a simple practice. But when we do a little more digging, we see it's an extraordinary act of thankfulness. We don't see that his sons did this. We see that Noah decides to thank God. And so, first consider that, 365 days in the ark. And as he walks off the planet, Noah makes a conscious decision that the very first thing should be to say thank you to God. God didn't tell him to do so. And, at this time in Near Eastern civilization, God had given the commandments or the law, the statutes regarding worship. Organized religions and faith practices were still thousands of years away from being formed in Exodus 20. Noah and his family had been the only followers of God amongst the society of evil dwellers. And therefore, this was a single practice to God, not a communal practice of the people. And offering a sacrifice of thanksgiving was not a social, religious, economic habit of the day. In ancient Near Eastern pagan worship, when a sacrifice was made, it was offered to appease the gods and to keep them happy, that the people would have good fortune. But Noah doesn't do this offering out of a need for good fortune. He does it or a desire to keep God happy. He does it to say thank you to God that he had survived. And so I want you just to think upon Noah's scenario. For a soldier, they lived in the ark, in the dark of the ship. Maybe they were able to get another, there was a window or some other stuff where they would let the birds out. But this ship was drenched in stench and the mess of every animal. And during this time, you're tossed back and forth. This didn't have a rudder. This was just a boat. It wasn't even a boat, really. It was just a thing floating on the water. And it was thrown around. And the ark finally banks itself on top of a mountain. And as he walks in the fresh air, what do you think your first act would be? Would it be, hey, let's build an altar to God? That was his exact thing. And so here's what we see is that gratitude turns the heart of God. Let's continue reading in verse 21. And the Lord smelled a soothing aroma. Then the Lord said in his heart, I will never again curse the ground. Curse the ground for man's sake. Although the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth, nor will I again destroy every living thing as I have done. While the earth remains, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, winter and summer, and day and night shall not cease. So God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. And so what happens here is as a result, it says that God, and I just find this so fascinating, that this gratitude, this act of gratitude, it says it was a soothing aroma. And after God smelled it, then he said, I'll never curse it. So it wasn't as they were coming off the ark. It wasn't until after this act of gratitude, God says, you know what? Man is worth saving. And God makes this commitment. And we know that he puts a rainbow in the sky, that's the symbol of this commitment. But this commitment is the direct result of this fresh aroma, this aroma of gratitude. If you want to, for us, I think an aroma of gratitude is when you are there on Thanksgiving Day and the turkey's just about to come out of the oven. You guys picturing this right now? Can you picture this aroma of gratitude filling the air? And you got the turkey ready to come out, and you got the smell at that point, and it was soothing to him. And as that sacrifice drifted up to God, God's heart was touched and turned. And at that point, he said, I will never again curse the ground because of man's evil. Blessings were given to Noah. It was not in response to anything that Noah had earned. His blessing was not because of his stellar, he was a stellar ship captain or kept the morale of the crew in high spirits, nor for having completed the ark. To God's building code, no. Noah's blessing was not in response to his obedience, although blessing does come from choosing obedience. In this story, we learn Noah received his blessing because he chose to worship. That's what gratitude is, giving worship to God, which pleased the Lord, because his heart was thankful and Noah's emotions overwhelmed into an act of gratitude and offering. It was, I'm going to give this to God. I'm so thankful that I've come out of this. And you could have had, Noah could have had a different point of view. He said, man, God killed everything around me. Let me take this offering out of fear. Let me try to appease God and think, but that wasn't Noah's point of view. He comes and makes this gratitude offering. So I'm going to throw a Greek word up there for you. The English word gratitude stems from the Latin word gratia, which means to give thanks. But the Bible takes this one word definition further. The Bible's word for gratitude is up there on the screen, and that's Eucharistia. And if you hear in that same word, it's the Eucharist. In the traditional of the liturgical church, to celebrate the Eucharist was to partake of communion. Okay? And so, Eucharistia. And in the middle of that word, you see this word, charis. And charis means grace. Okay? And so grace is the state of kindness and favor towards someone, often with a focus on benefit given to the object by extension. Grace is a favor, a favorable or an act of goodwill of loving kindness for which we do not deserve. And so, looking right here with this word, Eucharistia literally translates to give thanks or thanksgiving. And so, as we're moving to this Thanksgiving season, we're moving into a time to celebrate the Eucharist, to celebrate what God has done for us. And so, even further, let me take this a step further. Have you ever wondered why someone says, well, will you please give grace right now? That's because the root of this word here is charis, is grace. And so to give grace is to give that thanks. But it's also to receive the grace, that benefit that we don't deserve. And so it's that both and in this one area. So Eucharistia is an offering of thanks out of the abundance of grace shown to us. He said again, Eucharistia is that offering of grace, of thanks out of the abundance of grace given to us. It is to give thanks to the Lord, which with pleasure and delight, because we have received delight and pleasure from His grace, charis. Eucharistia is not a horizontal practice. It is not a give and take to and from. Grace does not travel one way and then comes back another. Eucharistia is reciprocal. It is the cycle of giving and receiving all at the same time. It is the grace abounding. The Bible tells us that God does not desire sacrifice for sacrifice's sake, but He delights in our expression, our declared praise and adoration, which is an outward expression of what is in our hearts. And so, right at the very end, it says in the Bible, when Jesus is setting up the communion, He says, and He gave thanks. Literally the translation, and He Eucharistia, or Eucharistemos, because it was in a different, because it's Greek and it's complicated, but Eucharistia. And so it said, and there was thanksgiving. And there was thanksgiving. And so we're looking at the meaning. God, Jesus is here. He knows He's at the end of His life here on earth. And He gives thanks. And there's thanksgiving. So by choosing a practice of gratitude, we choose the grace that God freely offered us and offered freely back to him. It's important to note that the gratitude we are talking about is much more than a thank you utterance. Practicing Eucharistia flows out of a sentiment of thankfulness. The gratitude for God's grace is more than a mere recognition of God's grace, but is a felt response which intrinsically demands that we express this response. I want to show you a couple of quick videos that help us to look at God's grace being poured out as an expression of love. Where'd it go? As an expression of love in some of these people's hardest moments. And these videos are great to watch, but they're hard to watch. These are people in their most painful time. They are literally on the edge of killing themselves. And yet God's grace is shown. There are 2 videos we show it to you.
Please come up over the finish line. Please. It's just me and you, man. That's it.
The video is hard to watch. Caught on camera, a simple offer from a Chandler police officer that saved the life of a 26-year-old man in distress.
Hey, buddy, don't go any lower. Please don't go any lower. Come back up here, man. Don't you want that hug? Then come up here. I will give you that hug, man. I will give it to you.
Tense moments as the man lowers himself down the protective railing of a pedestrian bridge over the Loop 101.
I'm not lying, man. I will give you that hug.
And finally,
You're good. Keep coming. Nice and slow. Give me a hug. Still got no done, all right?
An Atlantic City police officer is being hailed as a hero after saving a man in distress. The man's attempt to jump from the top floor of a parking garage was caught on police body cam. CBS 2's Dan Coop reports now on this emotional rescue.
13 floors above the Atlantic City streets, a man sits atop an elevated platform of a parking garage. Body camera footage captures Officer Eric Nuttall's negotiation with the man to come down.
You could just hear in his voice that he was distraught and he was hurting.
Police say 10 minutes passed as the man who had been drinking talks to someone on FaceTime. A trained crisis negotiator, Nuttall notices the man growing increasingly upset.
I saw him stand up and look towards the sides, and he rolled his head down and started walking. And I knew that I had to do something.
Nuttall breaks towards him, grabbing the man's legs to keep him stationary as other responding officers pull the two back from the ledge. Everyone goes to the ground where officers try consulting the man as Nuttall rubs his back and their eyes meet.
I just remember telling him I loved him. I wanted him to know that people care about him, and I've never met him ever in my life, and I believe that I was put there in that moment in time for that reason.
This right here is God's grace that's being poured out as an expression of love. This is how you show God's grace to someone. When we receive God's grace in our life, we naturally want to express it. We don't always know how it will come out, or how it's going to be used, or where it will go, but when this grace is received, it is desired to be expressed. So this Eucharistia is not just a one-time thing that we celebrate one time a year, but it's that expression of God's grace being poured out. Just as these officers did, they showed love to these people that were in they were very hurt. And so it's easy to recognize God's grace in our life when life's greater needs are met, or when we are the recipients of unmerited generosity. Children are a perfect example of this. As parents, one of our biggest tasks is to raise polite, emotionally aware children who learn how to say thank you, right? And so at our children's birthday party, we're constantly reminding our children, what do you say? What do you say? What do you say to get it to you? What do you say? Thank you. Say thank you. At the grocery store, I remember growing up, when we'd go to the grocery store, you do this, like Fred Myers, you go, and Josiah likes to go, especially when Nancy Melworth, you go get that free cookie, right? You get the cookie, and what do you say? It's to teach them to be grateful, but it's more than just, and so it's implying that there's a response that should be given for a free, undeserved gift. And so as parents would eventually say that some of our most humiliating moments of parenting arise from when our children are ungrateful. Josiah has done this on occasion. I think every kid has. But it was a Christmas gift last year, and as Christmas, there's the fun gifts, there's the toys, but then there's the underwear, the socks, the new clothes. And he opens this gift. I enjoyed it, and I picked out some really nice clothes for him. And he goes, I didn't want that. And you're like, ooh. And the response is, thank you, right? You spent money on me so that I don't have to run around naked. Thank you. Let's be honest, that's what we're doing here. But I don't want that. And it's like, then it was just us and the family. Ooh, but yeah. And so it's teaching them, even if you don't want it, you say thank you. However, when it comes to some of those smaller graces in life, or better put, more subtle graces in life, because we do not necessarily feel them at that moment, we often fail to recognize God's abundant grace throughout our day. And so it's easy to show grace when you get a raise at work, or someone brings a dinner by, or someone's there to help you. But what are those times when you don't feel it? When you get the underwear for Christmas and you're just not excited about it. I saw that coming. When you say thank you. Now, what you do is, I remember I went to a birthday party of she was 8 or 9, growing up, and she got underwear. And it wasn't just any underwear, it was the underwear that she wanted. Whatever cartoon character she wanted. And she went, I got my undies! And she was showing everyone. That's how you show gratefulness for your underwear, okay? But how do we practice gratitude in our daily lives? So when does God hear me and offer His grace in my life? Is it only at the dinner table when I'm ready to rub my belly and say thank you for this food? Or should it be more often? How does my response to His grace sound? Do I contemplate His grace and say thank you out of this intentional reflection of goodness and kindness that He has given me? Or do I just repeat the same 4 lines I say all the time before bed? Do I take the time to consider moments of goodness, of God's goodness and kindness throughout my day, and how He's benefited me? When I get up in the morning, do I say as David did, thank you, God, for the morning with new mercies. Thank you for the breath of my lungs. When Judah just won't quit screaming, and I'm frustrated beyond belief, do I thank God for His grace in giving Judah the lungs to scream, and now he's not wheezing anymore? When I get to a project, we did a project yesterday with Judah, do I thank God for creating Josiah to be the boy that He created to be? Am I thankful for even the mental and physical capacity to be able to do work with my hands and spend time with my own son? When we slow down and take the time to recognize God's grace, God's charis in our life as believers, desire Eucharistia, gratitude. If God's grace is all around us and working through us, then we intrinsically desire willingness to show and receive gratitude at recognizing God's grace and are expected to do so. You know, that police officer in the second video, he was able to say, "I love you," to this guy, despite not knowing this guy. You can watch the whole, there's a little more of the interview that I didn't show, but he doesn't know this guy from anybody else, never met him before. But he was willing to say, "Hey man, I love you." Because he could see, what happened right before in this video is that this guy gets a call, presumably from a girlfriend or ex or whatever, and it's because of that call he feels alone and lost, and he doesn't see anything in his life, and he's ready to end it all. I mean, he makes up his mind. He puts his head down, and he's walking off the edge when the police officer runs towards him. And the police officer recognized that he had God's grace in his life, and so he could give it to somebody else. And he could show compassion. You see, the last point this morning, number 4, gratitude, or 5, gratitude is the practice of remembering God's grace. There's a ritual tucked in the middle of the Passover story that is often unnoticed, and unless you're familiar with the Jewish tradition, you probably haven't heard anything about it. So, while I tell this story, this backstory a little bit, go ahead and flip to Exodus chapter 12. And so Passover takes place after the famine that happened with Joseph. All of the children of Israel, literally at that point, the 12 sons of Israel come and they live in the land of Egypt. And around 400 years pass, and there becomes a Pharaoh that does not know Joseph, doesn't know what God had done, and he chooses to enslave the children of Israel. And this showdown happens with the previous 9 plagues that basically attacks every single Egyptian god and shows our God as superior. And so now God is doing the most heart-wrenching thing. He's going to send the angel of death to take the firstborn son of every single Egyptian family, slave or free, that does not have the lamb's blood on the doorpost, telling them to pass over. And so this is the kind of what's going on, the back of this. In week 2 of this series, we're going to revisit the Israelites a little more extensively in the desert, look at Exodus 16. And so before the Passover night, the Lord gave clear instructions, precise directions to the Israelites regarding the actual Passover event, and how the Israelites were going to leave Egypt, and the ritual, the practice, the tradition for generation to come. And God sets this up as a way to remember what had happened, and also a way of foreshadowing Christ, who is our Passover lamb, so that they would never forget. Because he knew that if they didn't set it up now, they would have forgotten what God did for them in this moment. And so that's where the Passover piece comes. And so, speaking God's behalf, here's what Moses says in Exodus 12, starting in verse 24. "And you shall observe these things as an ordinance for you and your sons forever. And it will come to pass when you come to the land which the Lord will give you, just as he promised, that you shall keep this service. And it shall be when your children say this." What does this mean by the service? That you shall say, "It is the Passover sacrifice of the Lord, who passed over the houses of Israel in Egypt when he struck the Egyptians and delivered our households." So the people bowed their heads and worshipped. Maybe you're wondering, what does that have to do with gratitude or grace? But God knows that humans are forgetful, and he knows that the nations of Israel, the community, repeat the same mistakes throughout history for one primary reason: they forget the lessons that the previous generation learned. And God knew that if he didn't set up future practices to help the Israelites remember the salvation from Egypt, they would eventually forget his extravagant acts of grace to the Israelites, and that significant event would be lost to people. And so their lack of remembrance would lead to a lack of gratitude. And without gratitude towards the Lord for what he had done, their hearts would grow hard, and they would forget the Lord's salvation. And they'd end up slaves once again. And so when the children ask, why do we practice Passover? God wanted the adults to respond by remembering for their salvation, that they would not be the nation that they were if it wasn't for God's grace. And although the word gratitude is mentioned, it implies as part of the salvation ongoing work that if we want to live as a nation of significance and not fall back into a nation of slaves once again, that we have to remember God's grace in our lives. And that Passover was more than just a ritual, it was a practice of gratitude. And if you've never done it before, the whole, I think I'd love to plan one this year is do a Passover Seder meal together. But the whole part of the meal is symbolic. They were even to eat bitter herbs dipped in salt water from the tears that were shed. It's an act of gratitude and that remembering. And then it ends with worship, which is where gratitude should bring us. Eucharistia should always bring us back to the cross. You know, that song that we sing, the first song, Echo, there's a line that I just love. It says, you know, God, you make royals out of slaves. It's just phenomenal that, you know, God takes us who are slaves to sin, we've been talking the past few weeks, and he turns us around and makes us the children of God. And so if we're children of God, that means we're children of the King. And if we're children of the King, that means we're in the family of royals. So I love that line. And so when was the last time you had gratitude that God had brought you out of darkness and made you royalty? That you are princes and princesses in line with Christ. Because that is who you are. That is your identity in God. So practicing gratitude, receiving and expressing God's grace is the foundation for deep and meaningful life. Gratitude is fluid, and other virtues such as love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control piggyback upon the intentionally giving and receiving of God's grace, the practice of gratitude. Most, if not all, virtues are built upon living out of a state of gratitude. I mean, we are talking about love, but in joy, if you don't have joy, if there isn't gratitude, you're not going to have joy in the midst of hard circumstances, because gratitude helps you to see the light despite the darkness around you. Cicero said gratitude was the mother of all remaining virtues. Seneca believed a spirit of ungratefulness ranks below thieves, rapists, and adulterers. In the scientific journal comprised of hundreds of studies of gratitude and compiled by Berkeley, the Good Science Center, the Science of Gratitude, from 2019, researchers found that the desire to express and receive gratitude stems from our very biological roots that appear to be embedded in our history, the structure of our brains, and in child development. And although gratitude can be heavily influenced by culture, it appears to be an inherent part of the human nature, even animals. And so animals such as chimpanzees, fish, birds, and vampire bats all exhibit a desire to receive and express gratitude, reciprocal altruism. And through reciprocal altruism, they initiate a behavior that helps another, an unrelated individual, even at a cost to themselves, because they innately know that reciprocal altruism or gratitude will benefit them later on. So our desire to express, receive, and give grace is what makes life significant. When we ask ourselves what is important, we must assess within the realm of grace. For if practicing gratitude is the virtue that surpasses all other virtues, then anything of importance will be built upon living out of God's grace and expressing God's grace and gratitude. As the officer talked the gentleman off the ledge, something deeply ingrained in his human nature inspired him to share his own share what he felt in his own life within the man. And he was able to share grace because he had received grace. To live a deep and meaningful life, we must begin by accepting what was freely given, offering this grace back to God and others through regular practices of grace. In closing, our challenge this week is both a simple and profound one: to take time and meditate, journal, verbalize, and share with others the things that you are grateful for. Where have you seen the grace, the unmerited kindness and generosity of God flowing in your life? And as a follow-up, identify extend grace, the unmerited kindness, generosity towards others. And so as we close today, I think it's only fitting to sing about God, the amazing grace that God has for us, and to offer that grace to God this morning, Satan, just in that show of gratitude, the Eucharistia that God has for us. So why don't we just stand up today as we sing and we offer grace to God, as we sing Amazing Grace. I'm so thankful that your grace flows through. Lord, I pray that this week you open up our eyes to see more things where your grace abounds. Lord, I pray as we enter into this season of gratitude and thanksgiving, that we look for all areas in which we can be thankful, even for things that we weren't excited for. But to see your grace in those situations. Lord, I pray that you move today. That you move with us, not just today, but this week, to continue to show and to see your grace, and then to show it towards others. God, help us to give thanks